There's so many people on that edge and they just don't want to make the jump to go in to do what they want to do because of X, Y, and Z reason. But really, man, we live once.
You're listening to Creative Rebels, the podcast for creatives. Welcome back, Rebels. David Speed here. Have you listened to last week's episode yet? Last week we spoke to Rosie Woods, who is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many other people, one of the best street artists in the world. And we spoke about her incredible journey to becoming the artist that she is today. So well worth a listen, I think. So go and check it out if you've not yet. And next week, this is something to look forward to. I'm so excited about this. So we've got Stephanie Harrison coming on the show, who she's written a book called New Happy, which is basically about the old ways of what we've been told since we were kids, what would make us happy. It's probably making us miserable. And there are new ways to make yourself happy. And at the end of the day, isn't that what our little lives are all about, is being as happy as possible? It was such an insightful episode. So that's dropping next week. Cannot wait for that one. So that's something to look forward to. This week is something to look forward to too, but you're only going to have to wait about 30 seconds once I've done this intro to get into it. I've been writing this piece at the moment on marketing for creatives because most creatives hate marketing. And I was writing this little bit about how one of the most lovely things to get on the internet is I needed to hear this today, or I needed to see this today. And that makes your marketing worthwhile because you've shared about what you make and then it's hit someone, it's reached them. I think this episode I think I'm going to get that comment. I think at least one person is going to email me and say, I needed to hear this episode. Because some of the things me and George spoke about on this week's episode, this week's guest is George on Sports, George Eghator. And we spoke about discipline. We spoke about showing up as a creative, putting the reps in, about the parallels between athletes and creatives. And this might not be what you want to hear, but I think this is what you need to hear. So this is Dr. Speed prescribing this episode to all creatives. Go and give this one a listen, and I'd love to hear your feedback. So enough from me. Let's get into this week's episode with George on Sports. Welcome back, Rebels. I am thrilled today to be joined by my mate, and by the end of this episode, your mate, George on Sports. Hello, George. How you doing?
I'm great. Very, very, very excited to be on this show. Huge fan, avid listener. So this is a full circle moment, if you like.
It is, yeah. So we will get into that. At first, I just want to give you a little disclaimer that I know nothing about sports, and so this will not be a very sports focused chat. So I hope that's okay.
Absolutely fine.
Do you think though? So I've come around to this way of thinking in recent years. Like at my school, it was kind of like you were either in the athletic group and picked for the rugby team or not. And as soon as like I got put in the C squad for rugby, and that's basically like social death. It was like, oh, we don't touch you. So then through that ostracization, I go and find art and creativity and music, and that was like very much like, okay, I'm building my identity around these things instead of the athletic things. But as I've got older and become mates with more athletes, I've realized how much similarity there is between the musician and the athlete, the painter and the athlete, because I just think it comes down to like problem solving in the moment. And when you're on a field and there's a ball being thrown around, like that's very much what's happening in your brain, right?
Yeah. It's almost like you say, it's very parallel, very, very many similarities, because although they're in different fields, one may be in music, one may be in art, one may be in sport, everyone technically is trying to achieve the same goal, and how they go about it is technically the same. The mindset, the work ethic, the determination, the drive, the list of goals that you want to hit. Okay, it might be different in terms of how you achieve them. If you're a musician, you might want to practice singing certain notes, the falsettos, all that kind of stuff. If it's art, you'll paint over and over again, or spray paint over and over again. And if it's an athlete, then it's in the gym or working at your craft. So although they might be in different categories, if you like, essentially everyone's trying to do the same thing. And there are many similarities you can find in a number of different categories.
I remember seeing a gym TikTok, and the guy was saying like, so many people go to the gym and they put in 40%, And I thought like it's quite interesting to like apply that to my creative life. And I sort of looked back at the year that I'd done and I was like, what percentage would I put on that?
Hmm.
Because he was basically saying, if you don't go into the gym and you're not sweating when you come out, then what was the point in you going there? And I'm sure there's lots of like gym experts listening and being like, oh, that's, you shouldn't do that or whatever. And like working to exhaustion. And there's all of those like physical things, but whatever. But this guy was saying like the percentage of effort that you put in. And I just thought like, how much did, like, if I'm really honest with myself, how much did I put into my career the year before? And I was like, yeah, it was probably like 40-50%. And what does 100% year look like? What does like leaving it all out there?
Yeah. That's an interesting question, actually, because I seldom stop and look back at anything, really, whether it be whatever I've done that I kind of feel like I should be proud of, but I kind of just keep the focus of, all right, just move on to the next thing and don't pay too much attention. So that's a really good question. That analogy is great as well. I've heard it many times about being in a gym and not sweating. Have you really done anything? Which is a whole different conversation. But no, I agree with you. If I look back at, we'll come to that later as well. If I look back at mine, it's kind of hard to put percent on it, but I would probably say between 80 and 90. And there are ways that everyone will categorize that. I don't mean it in terms of close to burnout. I just mean it in terms of what more could I've given or what more could I've done that I wasn't already doing. But I just think as well, it's important to, so long as, even if it isn't a number above 50%, 60%, 70%, so long as there's a number there, if the musician or artist or athlete is trying to achieve something, that 40% is still 40%. The 60% is still 60%. Hell, the 20% is still 20%. You know, it's just showing up and actually trying and grinding and putting time into your craft that matters. You might not be at that number yet, or you might not have hit the target number, but it's still something, right? If you're trying to achieve something anyway. So I do think it's still important it is important to look back, and actually you've kind of made me realize that I don't do it enough, actually.
I'm very much the same as you. I'm always like on to the next thing, on to the next thing. And I do understand why people say that you should like enjoy your victories, because it's like that's the I think is like one of the markers of being like a really happy person is someone who is able to look back and reflect. But still, I'm still like, okay, yeah, we've done that, we've ticked that box, I'm on to the next thing. I don't know, it's
I think it's a case of not you don't want to let yourself get complacent. And then that's not to say that you and I or anybody else will get complacent, but I think it's important to enjoy the wins, you know, celebrate it however you may. But I just feel like there's a for me anyway, personally, there's a thing to staying grounded and not getting too carried away with the success, because I think at the back of my mind it's, well, this might not be the case next year or a couple months time, so let's just keep working, so, you know, I don't have to panic about, okay, I've had this win, but when is my next win going to come? So let's just keep the train going, you know. It's just something that sits in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And what I've noticed as well is how sporadic the wins can be. So for me, it's like that I find a lot of the wins in the process, because those big moments, those big like career highlights that will be like, it's quite depressing actually, but I think it's like, it's a career highlight if you think, I'll probably pin that on my Instagram, which is actually like quite a depressing way of looking at like
there is nothing wrong with that at all. There is nothing wrong with that.
But those moments, they like, you're going to get like one of those every couple of years, you know, the pin-worthy career highlights. And if you're only ever chasing those, then it's going to be quite a difficult journey. That's
very different. And that's something, I mean, some people fall into that trap sometimes, but what you said there, which is really important, is the process, because man, I remember nights, AMs, PMs, weeks, months of processes, but always in the back of my mind. And that's one thing that's kept me on track the entire time. So when I started listening to you guys to where we are now, where I am now, is the process, because I've always said the process is going to get me to wherever it is I need to be, right? And wherever I end up is going to be a reflection of the process. So if I put the work in and keep the process going, which I've continued to do to this day, and it's not always been easy at all, believe me, it hasn't. But the process is so important, so important. It's more so focus on that and the journey as opposed to the shining sort of star at the end. Because like you say, you keep chasing that one star, you know, it's may not end very well. You may not enjoy the process, and you'll look back, as we're talking about looking back, and may not be too happy.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it. And it sounds so simple. Like when you said it, it was just, that was a complete light bulb for me. It was just like, yeah, that's actually really beautifully put. It's like, yeah, you just keep building on the thing that you made before, and you just keep going. But like you said, yeah, it does sound so simple, but then you caveated it perfectly with like, but it is also fucking hard.
It really is. It really is. And anyone who's doing something or trying to get somewhere or achieve something will tell you that, because it's part of the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you had like a long career playing sports, and am I right? You don't play sports anymore, right?
Not American football. I now kickbox,
Yeah.
but I'm always doing something.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because you need to keep active.
That's right.
And you got into playing American football through because your uni didn't have a rugby program, right?
Yeah. So I if I take it even back, football, as in English football, was my first sport. Played it for a year, got fed up with people falling around and acting like they were hurt, so I left. And then that was I just remember it like it was yesterday. I kind of looked at the guy on the floor and was like, this isn't for me. Then I joined.
Yeah, what about if I actually smack you?
Quite
so
literally, right?
Play rugby.
Yeah, exactly. So I actually got home that day, and the Six Nations was on, the Six Nations Cup, which was however many years ago now. And was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I get to legally hit people and run. And, you know, I knew I was fast, so I joined the rugby team, played rugby for about 5 years, and then went off to uni, like you mentioned. Except when I got to uni, the rugby team, who I made a beeline for at the Freshers' Fair, they trained and played so far away from where I lived, and I didn't drive at the time in my first year of uni, so I was automatically, I can't do this, and I was distraught. But next to them was another table of cheerleaders and trophies and jerseys and helmets and shoulder pads and a massive TV screen with people knocking each other out in terms of highlights. And I was like, wow, this is me. And it was the American football stand. And I never looked back, honestly. I joined, so that was 2010. I joined and played for 11 years. Honestly, I wish I could have joined from a younger age, because it's everything about the sport is just me through and through. Played for 11 years, had a great time. As I got older, I started to get a bit more injured. It's a contact sport, so you can't hide from the injuries, right? But that's what I signed up for. And yeah, played for 11 years, had a great time. I wouldn't change any of it. People always ask me, you know, you played rugby, you played American football, you've played contact sport for a long time. Why do you do it? There's so many different answers, but it's not just a sport you get from it. Like what I'm doing now, speaking to you, what I've gone on to do, wouldn't be the case if I didn't play the sport, if I never found myself there. So, you know, again, the process, it leads you to different directions. Sometimes directions you don't expect, right? And I've had a lot of things happen I would never have expected to happen or have come through playing the sport.
It's so wild. I'm doing a guest lecture at a uni coming up in a couple of months, and that's the thing I really want to focus on is like just try shit, especially when you're young, because it's so wild to me, the butterfly effect of just these little decisions that we make. Because if I had never decided to go on this like media studies trip to Amsterdam, then I never would have met Paul, who gave me a spray can and changed the entire course of my life.
Yeah.
And for you, if the rugby team had been closer, you 100% would have joined the rugby team, and your life would look so different now. It's just wild, just that choice of, okay, well, I can't do that one, so let me try this one, as that has had a complete knock-on effect for your whole life.
Monumentally. It's actually funny, because I was thinking about this the other day, because obviously the Six Nations is on and I've watched a little bit of it, and I've thought to myself, how different would my life look, would it be, if I didn't pick up American football or go and try it? Because I'd never played it before. I mean, I'm from North London. There was a local team near me by the name of London Blitz, but I'd only ever seen them train once or twice. I've never actually taken it up, tried it out. So uni was well and truly my first time. Yes, I came from contact sport, so that element, I mean, it's quite similar, but nothing really prepares you to being, you know, smacked in the face with a whole load of plastic and metal. I'll tell you that. It's thought-provoking, right? Like, if I didn't do that, if I played rugby, geez, so many things would be different. And I'm talking even down to my family and my kids and my wife. Everything would be completely different, which is a wild thought, really.
Yeah, it's insane. So we were talking before about like athletes and creatives, what they've got in common. I think the thing that the athlete has that so often the creative doesn't is discipline. Was that like drilled into you?
I think there's a difference in terms of someone who plays sport at a level to have fun and keep it very amateurish, if that makes sense. Like you aren't intending to take it
Yeah.
pro, or you aren't intending to compete. You want to play for fun, for fitness, and that's absolutely great. The social element, you get a lot of that from sport. But then it jumps slightly, because if you have the option or the interest to want to take it to a specific level where you have to then train outside of your team and train with your team and do things like classroom sessions, you're meeting up in your spare time, you're giving up your annual leave, that kind of stuff, where you then start to compete against other teams, you travel, and then you realize, actually, this is my life now, so I have to take this seriously. I think discipline, if you don't already have it, you will quickly find it if you decide to take that jump, because everybody else around you now is of that same wavelength. And if you aren't up to that mindset, that level, once you join a semi-pro or a professional sports team in any, doesn't matter what sport it is, you will quickly find that everybody else around you is up here and you might still be down here in terms of your attitude towards the game, your mentality towards the game. So discipline, if you didn't already have it, it will find you. And the great thing about sport is it won't take you long to adapt to that, because you're looking around the room and you're thinking, wow, I mean, I want to do what they're doing. They've finished training and they're going to the gym, or they've finished the gym and they're now stretching and they're doing things that I wouldn't normally do. I'll just go home. So you quickly find yourself adapting and becoming like-minded to these people. So discipline, yeah, like I said, if you didn't have it already, you will quickly find it.
But that parlays perfectly over to creatives, doesn't it? Because it's like, if you are an amateur and you just want to like do a bit of creativity for fun, like you write poems, but you don't want to be a poet, then it's fine to write a poem every 6 months or every 6 weeks or whatever your schedule is. But if you want to play on the field with the best players, then you've got to put in what they're putting in.
You do.
That's going to come down to discipline.
Exactly. And it does mesh very well with creatives, because you know, you've got a bunch of creatives out here, who knows how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of creatives who are trying to, again, achieve something or do something. If you don't have the discipline to create the content, script, write ideas, film these shots, seek advice, get feedback from friends, be out there, put yourself out there, not all circumstances, but a lot of them. If you don't have the discipline to put those things in order, put those things in work in progress, you're going to find it really hard to achieve what you want to achieve as a creative. And that goes for a number of different, again, categories too, but it does mesh really well with that side.
I paint quite early in the morning to avoid getting myself into too much trouble. And the last thing I want to do when I wake up at 5 is get out of bed. I find it so hard. It's like, it's the biggest thing that holds me back. It's like, if I sleep in and get up at 10, I just hate myself for the rest of the day. I'm just like, I wish I'd got up. I wish I'd gone out.
Same.
But when I'm laying in my pit, the last thing I want to do is get up. So I wrote this thing down that I say to myself, get back to fucking work. Everything you want is on the other side of this. And then this is the key one. If you're willing to put yourself in discomfort, you're at a huge advantage over everyone else who won't. And that's the one. Once I read that, that kicks me straight out of bed.
I like that a lot, because it's, again, so many similarities from both the art world, the creative world, the sporting world. You saying that morning issue, honestly, it rang a bell for me. I mean, I find it so hard to get up early, so hard. And I would much rather just stay in bed and cower under the covers and have a couple more hours and then beat myself up about it, because I realized how much time I've wasted, right? Both in the creative side and the sporting side. From the sports side, most times I go to the gym 6 in the morning, which means I have to get up at 5:15 roughly, maybe half 5 if I have a nap. And it's the most horrible thing to do, especially in the winter. It's dark, it's cold, it's rainy, it's wet. Nobody wants to do that. But if you can do that, and same thing goes from the creative side, if you know you have a finite amount of time and you need to record, you need to script, at least plan ahead, those early hours of the morning might be the best or the only time for you to do it. And if you don't do it, you're already setting yourself behind in terms of your daily schedule, or weekly, monthly, whichever it may be. And then you spend the rest of the time kicking yourself because you didn't do it. But when you do make that jump, when you do get up and you do the thing that you really don't want to do, honestly, number one, the endorphins alone from knowing you've checked that box. Everyone else is asleep. It might be, the getting up early like we deal with. And you can go, you know what, I'm here, I'm working out. I know everyone else is in bed. I've done what I needed to do. I can go on with my day accordingly and feel good about it. But again, it's not easy. It's not easy.
And I see a lot of like pushback on hustle culture online. And I totally get it. It's like when I write down, like, push yourself through the discomfort, It doesn't say make sure you burn out and make sure you like go over the top. It's really like the discomfort is me just getting out of bed. It's quite a simple thing.
Hmm.
But then also realizing that most people will let their inner whatever it is voice just go
Yeah.
and let themselves off the hook of
Yeah.
like, I think that's my main thing with this like whole anti-hustle culture movement is like, but you've got to be accountable somewhere.
Hmm.
Otherwise the work doesn't get done. And
Yeah.
if the work doesn't get done, like then you're fucked.
Exactly. Sometimes it feels like, and it's a weird one because the whole anti-hustle culture movement, it's like, why is it a bad thing? You know, why should it, if you're trying to achieve something and you have to do these things and you have to hustle or grind per se, which means doing some things you don't want to do, and doing things that most people won't do, why is that a bad thing? The easiest way to say it is it feels like sometimes people are, that it's like a mirror. It's like they want to be doing those things, but because they can't do it, it's easier to kind of hate or shame somebody else for doing it. Hence the whole anti-hustle grind culture. And I've never understood it personally. Like, it's no one's business but yours, you know. If someone decides to hustle and grind and they do these unpopular things or these things that you wouldn't do, fine. It's not you who's trying to achieve it. You're happy to just, you know, do what you're doing, but let them get on with it, you know. I mean, you're right. If you don't hustle and grind, okay, some people might not like the word because it can be a bit cringy, if you like. But if you aren't putting the work in, how else is anything supposed to happen? It isn't. It simply isn't going to. So
Yeah, I've been seeing these posts recently that are anti-hustle porn, that have millions of likes. Because obviously we have like hustle porn, which is like the motivational quotes, but anti-hustle porn, which is like, let yourself off the hook. It's fine. If you haven't created for a while, just go back to bed and don't worry about it. And they do so well.
Yeah.
Because it hits people with that like that
It's
soft, comforting blanket of like, it's okay, pop it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I just think, wouldn't you rather just be like, I'm fucking fired up, I'm excited about what I do? Because I'm so much happier. Like on the thing it says everything you want is on the other side of this. Like I'm so happy once I have made the plunge and done the work, even though the work is hard, and like when I get back my back is going to be aching, and but I'm so happy that I've like been there and done that and been through the process, embracing all of the suck of the process and all of the hard struggles of the process. Like that's part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want people to hear what I'm not saying, right? Having a break every now and again, or that stuff is fine. Obviously, we are humans. We aren't robots. We need it. You mentioned your back. Lord knows I know that feeling on it when I'm standing for hours trying to get interviews and content and you're struggling to get it, but you know your feet hurt and your back hurts, but it's worth the wait. And trust me, it's been worth the wait on so many occasions for me. But there's a difference, I feel like. There's a difference between feeling like you need a rest day, or maybe you're close to burnout and you need to just step back a little bit, as opposed to the cuddly blanket of, oh, this creator or athlete or artist or musician has, they've been wanting to make the leap, but every time they think about making the leap, they see a quote and it goes, you know what, put it off till tomorrow, it's fine. And then you snowball that effect and it goes, and before you know it, the year's gone and you haven't done anything. So I think there is a clear difference for sure.
Yeah, agree. So what is your job? What do you actually do?
Good question, because a lot of people think the George on Sports side of what I do is my full-time job. It isn't. It's my side hustle. And I'll just say this, I think I'm one of the few people that I've met who intend to keep my side hustle as side hustle. I think obviously some creators and people in different fields are trying to make their thing their full-time thing. I'm actually not. I'm actually just trying to make it as a successful side hustle as possible. So I actually work for my family business, my wife's family business, and it's been going for about 36 years. It's in property and supported living. So it's kind of like two blended into one. I work in the office. It can be very flexible because it's a family company. And essentially that allows me to pursue George on Sports. Now, just to, I suppose, summarize what George on Sports is, towards the end of my playing career, so probably about year 9, 10 of playing, myself and a group of guys on the team decided to what we call locker room talk, same sort of thing. After you finish a show, after you finish a piece of artwork, after we finish a game on the field, you kind of convene, you have feedback, you get it from others, you get it from yourself, and you talk to friends. And we were finding that we were discussing the same things every Sunday after a game. What went wrong, what went right, type of VAR kind of stuff, if you like. And one of them was like, well, why don't we put this in a podcast form? Because American football in the UK isn't really covered. I mean, it's grown a lot now, but it wasn't really covered back then. So we, seven of us, we clubbed together, well, eight, and then one left, but seven of us, we clubbed together, had no idea what we were doing, met at a friend's house, had a recording mixer, just plugged things into things and brought food, and we recorded an episode, and it was horrendous. It was awful. I don't even know if the audio came out correctly because we didn't know what we were doing. So we had a bit of a setback. And then one of the guys was like, if we really want to be serious about this, so this is an example of the either just take a seat, get under the blanket and not bother, or kick into action. And one of them was like, why don't we actually go and do this in a studio, an actual studio where they can handle all of that kind of stuff. We can man the cameras and make a show. And we did. So we used to record every couple of weeks in Ladbroke Grove. We rented a studio. They dealt with all the audio. We learned how to use cameras, etc. Didn't know how to use any of that stuff. So myself and one of the other guys decided to run social media, learn how to use cameras, how to use editing software. So it was basically like just learning, being in school again almost. But it was great, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it was really good. We did it for about 3.5, 4 years. Had some great guests on the show, like legendary players from the UK, people in the scene. Just, it was great. It was great. It's what we wanted, and it was well received. And then I basically just wanted to do more. And this is where Rebels comes in, because I remember listening, I think it was 2021. And I remember listening to all the people you had on your shows every season. I think you did shows between yourself and Adam as well, where you would just talk on things. And then you had these access sessions, I believe they were, where you had a number of people join, and you would a bit more like private advice and how to go about things. And I just remember wanting to do more. And there was obviously quite a few of us in the group, and the feeling wasn't reciprocated. So I was kind of like, well, what do we do from here? Like, I spent a lot of my time, I sacrificed a lot of my time traveling up and down the UK. I'd managed the socials for the team, which I loved, by the way, because I wanted to do that. I edited the show every week, which was grueling, but again, I learned a lot of late nights. Bear in mind, I've got kids as well, so I'm settling the kids, I'm coming back down, editing, vice versa, up until the morning. It was good, but it was hard, right? And I'd learned so much. So slowly but surely, I started to think I can kind of do this on my own, because I wanted to do so much more. I mean, we had a huge potential, but you know, they say you can't force a horse to drink water. You can lead it to the stream, but you can't force it to drink. So I was kind of like in that situation. So it just got to the point where I was coming to you guys, essentially listening to all your advice and how to go about things, because I think you had a lot of people on your show who had been through similar things, and I was listening to them for advice, and everything just started clicking into place. It was crazy. Honestly, it was a really weird time for me. I'd always be speaking to my wife about it. We'd listen to Rebels in the car, literally everywhere we went. And then I went to an event at the Tottenham Stadium, which was it was an NFL event. I was the only one to go from the group. For whatever reason, no one could go. And that's when it kind of hit me, because I think people were approaching me for interviews, event invites. And I was kind of thinking, well, I was wearing the brand of the group, but I was kind of representing myself, and it was working. It was going really well. And a light bulb moment kind of hit. And I was like, you know what? There's so many people here at this event I've been chasing for so long. Now I've got access to them. I had a chance to interview a few of them, and it went great. And I kind of just sat back and thought, maybe that was the kind of like the key that I needed, combined with speaking to you guys and listening to all the shows and the advice and putting things into action. It's funny because I've got a list on my phone of like an action plan, of a process, if you like, of how to get to where I want to get to. And the end goal wasn't to be this guy or do that or do this. It was a process, and the process has gotten me to all these different places. So I think at some point in 2021, I think it was October, I've got a note again in my phone where I just basically was like, okay, I'm done. It was strange because we're all friends. We still speak now, but I just had to separate the two, the business side, if you like, the business side, or the creative side, and the friendship side, because I wanted to do more and they weren't so interested in that. And that's fine. You know, that's not always going to be the case for everyone. So I kind of jumped ship. It's my wife that actually came up with the name George on Sports, which it just stuck ever since, and it's a great name. And I kind of put everything I'd learned in the 4 years of doing the show with the guys, so the editing, the networking, the connections I'd made, managing social media, because I had done none of that, and kind of took that upon myself and was like, well, I can kind of run with this because I know what I'm doing. I have a start level. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a long road, and it has been a long road, but it's going to be worth it. So I always talk about the process again. And where I'm at now is kind of crazy, really, in terms of some of the places I've been able to go. I've been able to make it to 2 Super Bowls, which is insane, absolutely insane. I actually met you in person, which is also insane. It's been great. It's been great. I mean, I can't really complain, but the process and the work hasn't stopped. Essentially, it just hasn't stopped.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically like the go-to guy if someone wants NFL in the UK, then you're the first port of call.
Yeah.
I'm interested to you said about the process that you wrote down in your phone, but it wasn't I want to be XYZ. What was it? What did it look like?
So I've just pulled it up here. It's titled The Switch Up. And it's actually from the 13th of April, 2021. And it says, the day I decided to switch things up. And now this is in no particular order, right? But there's a number of things on this list. And actually at the top of the list is appear as a guest on the Creative Rebels podcast. Now, I don't know if you can actually see that. It might not focus. It is like number 1 up there. It's a bit blurry. But a number of other things on there was figure out what it is I actually want to do. Figure out what you want to do. Make a start on said idea within the year. I've given myself till 2022 here. I've put start for the small, not for the many. Do not seek applause. If it scares you, do it. Now, a lot of these things I kind of used to remind myself. And I just wasn't, you mentioned what was the list of processes. I just didn't want to focus on an end goal because really I still don't know what that end goal is because this is a side hustle and it's never going to, it's never going to be anything more than that. It could be one day, I don't know. But I just wanted to make sure that my processes were correct. The reason I'm doing it was correct. How I was going to do it was correct, not opposed to how do I become him over there. And as long as I stayed true to myself, which I am, because it's a passion project. I love what I do and I could talk on it all day. It's just continued to snowball, essentially.
That's beautiful, man.
I had so many conversations with myself, so many conversations with my wife. Listening to you guys, I have to say, were a big hand in that.
We get that a lot. Like both Adam and I have had DMs from people saying, "You changed my life," etc., etc. Very beautiful, and we are very humbly accept that, and it's very lovely for people to say. But at the end of the day, what we always say back to people is, "No, you did that." Like we might have been the catalyst that finally got people to we kicked their ass a little bit and they just went, actually, do you know what? I finally believe that I can make this happen. But everything that's happened, me and Adam didn't do anything to help your career. It was like you put the action in 100%. So it is all down to you, but I do appreciate the sentiment.
Well, thank you first and foremost. But I get that. Like, for some people, you guys will be the catalyst. Some people, you guys will be the kick up the bum. Sometimes you can just be that second voice on someone's shoulder to say, there's an opportunity there. This is what you wanted to try and do. Grab it, and you might be scared. I see a lot of these sort of self POV interviews all over social media about what advice would you give to your younger self or what's been the hardest thing you've done. And one of them that I really resonate with is doing things scared. And I know some people have a slightly different opinion on that because I think the other side is, well, if you do it scared, then you mess up, then you've ruined your opportunity. But personally, if it's something that you're after, could help or is part of the process, I would do it scared personally. And I've done a ton of things scared. Doesn't mean that I'm not prepared. Could be scared, could be anxious. It could be, this is one of the biggest processes to make the opportunity you're after. And you might have the butterflies in your stomach, but you should still do it, in my opinion, do it scared because you don't know what's on the other side of that door. And that is another thing that I've had so many experiences with. When you go somewhere that you don't want to go, or you say yes to something that you're kind of like, oh, why did I say yes? And really, it's such a great thing you did because it's led to so many other opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. I guess, so going back to what you said about the podcast, I think us being that kind of little angel on people's shoulder and saying go for it, I think it's so good for especially for creators who don't have a support system. I think through chatting with you a few times, one thing I've learned about you is you have got a good support system, and specifically you always bring up your wife. How has she helped with your career? Massively, and in a number of different ways. So the most important thing I think was deciding to even do it solo, because I had never done it before. And yes, I had some experience with the guys, the media group that we had, but I hadn't done it on my own. And I'm not going to lie, one of the things that really bothered me was, how is this going to look if I decide to go my own way, right? I was kind of like, well,
Is it going to look bad on me because it looks like I've left, or do I look like I'm betraying them? And it bothered me a lot. And my wife, we had conversations all the time about it, and she was just like to me, well, you have tried many times, and that's why I say about bringing the horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And she was almost like the reinforcing point that I needed to hear, to say, you are allowed to go and do what you want to do. You've got a number of set of skills, you've learned all these things, and you want to do more. There's nothing wrong with wanting to do more, and there's also nothing wrong with people who don't. But if you want to do more, go and do more. And she could see I was going to different places, I was being invited to different events, to the point where I think she was just like, you just need to go and do your own thing. At this point, she was like, that's it, you're going to do your own thing now. But it's having the person there to have the conversation with when you're feeling low. You can kind of be like, am I doing the right thing? And they're just there to remind you, actually, you are doing the right thing. Stick with it.
And I know that was something that you agonized about, because if I remember rightly, when you came to Access, your question was around, you hadn't left yet, right? You were still...
That's it. And I remember it like it was yesterday. Honestly, that was probably the biggest thing in terms of jumping ship, if you like. And I remember the Access call as well, very, very well. I was in a different house at the time, and I was thinking, it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders almost. It felt like I had a sense of relief, because I kind of knew the answer, but it's almost like I was looking for someone to kind of just go, just shove me and be like, do it. You want to do it, do it. You haven't done anything wrong. So the conversations I had on the Access call, the conversations I had with my wife, they were very, very helpful. When you talk about that support system, it does go a long way, for sure. Because there's so many people on that edge, and they just don't want to make the jump to go in to do what they want to do because of X, Y, and Z reason. But really, man, we live once, you know what I mean? We literally live once. If you have a goal or a target or a process you want to put into place, go and do it. Really, just go and do it, because you are missing out on so many things that are untapped. And I get it, fear is a thing, right? But if you can channel that into moving the process forward, you will not look back.
I was talking with Amy McNee about this, and I can't remember whether it's on the podcast or off the podcast, but that idea that has been ingrained in so many of us, that it's a bad thing to go after what we want. And the fact that some people would live smaller lives because they are afraid of the optics of them actually pursuing a remarkable life.
Yeah.
Like, no, you are allowed to dream that you could be whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
And I always sort of think, I feel like it's my responsibility to let people know that, because when I was an art student and my tutor told me that I would never be an artist and it wasn't a valid career option and I should be more realistic, I think she failed me in her responsibility to tell me that I could do whatever I wanted. And it wouldn't be easy, but that it was my duty to myself to squeeze everything out of this one short life that I have. And so many people are living small, and that hurts my soul. Like I look at people like you, and you're so much happier because you made the leap and you realized what was right for you was to go solo.
Yeah, it's a great point, man. And I speak to so many people as well who are now asking me these questions. The questions that I was kind of asking myself, asking you guys, asking everybody else, people are asking me. And I feel like a lot of people get bored of the answer, because a lot of the times it's the same kind of thing. And it's not the only answer, but in my experience, it's just do. It's really, and I get it. You've got fear, you've got the imposter syndrome, which, listen, I still deal with till today. Like, I know imposter syndrome is a horrible, horrible thing, and I still deal with it from time to time, more often than you'd think. But the answer and the optics around the answer are always the same thing. And I just feel like it's almost kind of corny at this point, or boring when I say this to people. But really, there is no other answer, you know? There is no other answer. If you can get into the work of it, get into the process, and please understand, it's not going to be easy. Nothing is easy, right? That when I say that, it's different things. I don't just mean, the process of doing it is going to be hard. You might have a financial obstacle. You might have a mental block. You might have something happen in the family. Things happen. We're still living life. But it's about being able to continue, work around those things, persevere. If it's something you really want to get yourself involved in, you will find a way to deal with it and progress. It's so important that people, honestly, it is so important that people go after it. Like you said, I'm much happier. It honestly was like a a shadow of a raining cloud above my head for so long, and it was really beating me down. Really beat me down because I wanted to do it on my own for so long. I was like, I really want to do it, but I can't because I'm not allowed. Do you know what I mean? And why am I not allowed? Why? Who has told me I'm not allowed? But being on the other side of that cloud is great. It's great.
I mean, I guess exactly the same thing has happened to me recently with this show. Like I thought, can I do this without Adam? And for a while I had just this big mental block of, well, but Adam does all the editing and there's no way I'm going to be able to learn how to edit to the standard that the listeners have been listening to for all these years. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And then I just thought, okay, just get an editor. Like that's if that's the one big obstacle. And I think I've learned so much about like working in teams or working with other people over the years. And I think it's always my preferred go-to because I question everything and I go, oh, am I like my solo career as an artist was a complete accident because we had a pandemic and I just started putting my own artwork out into the world and it took off, which I totally didn't expect. But my preferred was always like, let's work as a team, because then when I'm like unsure about something, I've always got someone to ask for the opinions. But what I've found the hard part of when you're working with other people is, so I would only ever match what the other people were doing. So me and Adam working on the podcast, I would only put in as much work as Adam put in, because otherwise I would see it as an imbalance if I was working harder than they were. And so now there's my own thing. It's like, I can work really fucking hard without like worrying that I'm like, that I'm putting pressure on Adam to like, look, have you done this? Have you done that? Like, which he hates, because I was like, look, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I think it can be so damaging if you can find a dream team like that we've interviewed on the podcast, like Tatty Divine comes to mind. Like they have got perfect working synergy. They both know their roles and they know who does what, and it's absolutely just works like a dream. But when you do go solo, you just had that complete freedom of like, I can put as much or as little into this as I want to. And I don't have to put pressure on my other teammates of like, can't you see this? Like, this is my vision. Like, don't you want to do my vision? And they're over here with like, but this is my vision. It's like, if you could drive yourself to, if no one else wants to come to your vision, then you've just got to drive there on your own. Yeah.
And that was something very prominent with me as well. Obviously being in a team of 7. And I always say, like, if we were all on that same wavelength, which is really hard to do, I understand that, we would be, who knows, we'd be flying, but that wasn't the case. And although we had a big group, again, not everyone was on that same wavelength, and that's okay. You know, it can't be forced. But if not, you go things solo, and you're in more control. You know, yes, you don't have the team, but now it's you. You know, all the issues that you had prior, you don't have anymore. So you can, like you say, put in what you want, what you don't want, and you have you just have yourself to look at and be like, I'm kind of in charge of this thing, so you know I can have it the way I want it to be, which is great.
When you did take that leap and you first went solo, like what did that look like? Because obviously you're starting from zero.
Yeah. So no physical studio, number one. So we used to record in a professional studio. That disappeared. When I did go solo, it's a question I asked myself. It was like, okay, what do I actually want to do now? I wanted to be solo, but now what do I want to do? And what I started with to what I'm doing now, 2 completely different things, which is another thing in terms of the process. Like, I started making game day photos or game day posters. So by that, I mean, I used to use Canva, still use Canva now. Great tool. And I would pick any particular NFL game that weekend and pick what I thought was the game of the week. So the best, hottest, most fierce game. And I'd make a poster on Canva. And that's what I started doing. It was poor work for me. I knew how to use Canva, but I wasn't, an illustrator, an artist. I didn't know how to put that kind of stuff together. So it was very, very, very basic. And that's what I did. I made game day posters for a while. I'd make up big write-ups about why this was the game day, why it was a good game. And eventually some of the people that we had from the UK scene in terms of the followers, listeners, would see that, okay, he's solo. Why is he solo? And then I started to panic a little bit because I'm thinking, oh, this is the bit where we find out what's really gonna, in terms of the reaction. But it was great. People had seen that I'd gone solo and was like, okay, cool. What have you got? So I moved on from creating game day photos to then thinking, you know what, I've got experience in podcasting, and I love to speak, evidently. And I always wanted to speak to people from the league, players, ex-players, analysts, reporters, just to give people in the UK and around the world a different viewing option, because you don't, on a game day, you just see the game, you watch a game on your TV or in person, and you go home. But you don't see anything around that, like the BTS. You don't get to hear from the people who are on the ground in terms of what it takes to do what they do, what it takes to be a sideline reporter, what it takes to be an NFL player, what it takes to be a head coach, what it takes to be women in sport in the NFL. You don't hear it. So that was my goal, except I had no idea of how to get people onto the show, because who am I? I'm just a guy from the UK who loves the sport. Being from the UK enough was a bit of a barrier, because they kind of look at it and go, what do you know about American football? Little do they know that I played for 11 years. So that was a caveat. That's what helped me get guests onto the show. The accent and the fact that I knew what I was talking about. So that stood strong for me.
So initially in your head, what you thought was a barrier actually turned out to be a positive.
Massively. And it still does to this day. I not long returned from the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and it's so crazy to say, but I feel like we were treated like gods purely because we were from the UK, because I'd played, because of my accent, and because I could hold the conversation about the sport. It was insane. So what I thought was a barrier has not been a barrier throughout this entire process. It's been a key, if anything, really, which is really weird to say. But my first guest was someone who helped to set up NFL Africa. And after her, I kind of just used each guest to attract the next guest. So I'd say, I've done this, I've had this person on the show, it'd be great to have you on, to the point where eventually I was having sideline reporters, ex-players, head of officiating, managers, coaches, everyone on the show, which is amazing for me. But if you'd had asked me that when I started in 2021, when I had my first show, I think it was October 2021, or even when I started doing Canva game day photos, whether I'd be going to 2 Super Bowls, interviewing the best of the best, the creme de la creme from the sport, traveling to watch different teams play in Germany, Ireland, New Orleans, Vegas, I would have laughed in your face. Absolutely laughed in your face. Hell, I've forgotten one of the main things. I've somehow ended up with an NFL show, which is incredible. I haven't touched on that yet, but it kind of just occurred to me that that's one of the things that happened too. I was never in it for that, but it happened.
So that's through the official league.
So this is through, there's a streaming platform called DAZN, DAZN. They're basically like a Sky Sports, and they
do all the fights and stuff,
boxing.
Don't they? I'm a pro wrestling fan. So
yeah, they do boxing. They do, I think boxing's their biggest like thing, but they also host NFL Game Pass. Now, NFL Game Pass is how you can watch the NFL if you're outside of the States. Now, DAZN are a huge platform, and I think 2 years ago, again, just on my content journey, still going, haven't stopped, I was making some content about a particular player who had he requested a new contract, so he's refusing to play. So I made some content in this very room here, put the content out, shared it to stories, and someone had responded to my story saying, "Oh, can we have a quick chat?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. I'm not sure who this is, but all right." And turns out he was the vice president or president of DAZN, or maybe the NFL side of DAZN, and was like, "We love your work. Can we work with you?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. Like, why me? I'm just a fan of the sport." But that is what it was. It was the fact that I was continuously putting out content. They could see through my socials that I'd played, I'd know what I was talking about, I'd been to certain places, but what remained the same was the passion for the content. So I was always just putting content out. I didn't care if no one really liked it, or if no one, the views and the likes. Of course, that stuff matters in today's world, but I always say I'm a fan of the sport, and I produce content for fans of the sport. I'll always be a fan first. That will never change. And so what led to that was me creating, I think, 12 to 15 videos for the platform. And then I went out to the Super Bowl on my own, which is a huge achievement. The fact that I managed to get to the Super Bowl under my own name as George Sports was incredible. Again, not something I ever would have thought would have happened to me. And whilst I was out there, I'd seen the DAZN team, and I could see what they were up to, what they were doing. And I was kind of like, so this is what they do. And I was like, well, I've worked with them. Maybe one day I'll get to be part of the team if that's what they want, etc., etc. Fast forward to the following year, then I had an email from someone in the team and was like, "How do you feel about coming on board as like basically a freelancer?" So it was crazy. It's to the point where I run their socials in season. I program for them, which means during the games on Sunday, I get to program and cut up clips and put them online. We have an NFL show that we record here in the UK every single week during the season. We just finished our first season at the Super Bowl. That was the last episode we did. It runs from September all the way to February. Again, I mentioned at the Super Bowl, which is insane. It's viewed in over 102 countries. I don't like getting into numbers and metrics, but it's got over 1 million views across all the episodes. It's wild. And I do it with two people, a girl called Ash and a guy called Dre. And it just happened to be that the three of us just work really well together. And now we do the show on DAZN. It's called The Hurry Up on DAZN. It's on YouTube. It's on NFL Game Pass. It's incredible. I still can't believe it's even happened. And it's unreal, really, to think that this is where I'm at right now. What a journey. Crazy journey.
So when it comes to, because we did exactly the same thing with Rebels of how we leveraged one guest to get the next guest. Mm-hmm. Have you got any tips for if you're emailing, say, a big person that you'd love to get on the show? Like, what's your process?
Before I send that email, I've already done the legwork. I've done the research on that guest. And I like to find things, and I've done this throughout the show we have with the guys and what I do now. If I'm ever going to ask a question to said person, I never want it to be mundane, boring, or something they've been asked 1,000 times. I am that guy that will go the extra mile. I've been up till 2, 3 in the morning one time because I was trying to find something about this one guest that I knew would hit really well. I did find it in the end and it worked, but I'll go outside the box. So I'll find something really, really interesting, something that's going to go, oh my God, how did he know about that? And he's from the UK. And I'll add it in my list of topics to discuss. And when they see something like that, I normally get an email back, which is great. Now, sometimes it's a no. And in fact, a lot of the time it's a no. One of the guests I had on the show said to me, it should take 100 no's before you get a yes. Now, hell, it could be even more than that. But the analogy is just keep, and I always say, if you throw enough shit at the wall, something is going to stick, right? And that's been the case for me. So that's the kind of process I usually follow. A lot of the time, you don't even get a response. So just expect that too. But it's worked. It's done really well for me, and I continue to do that to this day.
That's very, very similar template to what I use. Finding that mad nugget of information is so handy because it just straight away, because we get pitched all the time for people to come on Creative Rebels, and I know a pitch email from the second I open it, and they're all, we really loved your episode with XYZ, and especially when you talked about this and this, and it's just like, I can tell that you haven't listened to the podcast. So people can tell when it's just this like copy and paste thing. So it's got to be unique for the person you're sending it to. And Nardwar, when he does those interviews and he just says something random and people like wig out, it's such a good technique because like if you find that weird thing that they've only spoken about once, because people forget what they've spoken about, but you just do the digging and like you just catch it at the end of an interview. What I really like as well is when you're watching an interview with someone and the person who was interviewing them is so concerned that they've got their next question on their list that they've got to get to, and it completely flies over them. And you're like, oh my God, that's gold, and it's never been like dug into. Like, let me steal that for myself. 100%.
Yeah, I think the other thing to take note of as well is when you're asking these specific questions that you're hoping they're going to hit. What I found is your guest remembers you as well. You got to think, right? All these people that you're trying to speak to and meet and interview, they've probably done this 1,000 times over. Yeah. Why should you stick out? What's the difference for you? That you want something for them to remember you by. To the point where I had a guest on the show, Stacey Dales. She's an NFL sideline reporter in the in the US, and she came over for a London game here. And I went to the media day. I knew who she was. She didn't know who I was at the time, and I stood next to her. And this is one thing I always do with her. I kind of dressed for the occasion, so I dressed for the event. I turned up to the event. You've got an NFL player on the podium.
So like you're suited and booted, you mean?
Not so much suited and booted, but like it's either like not a high fashion, but a smart casual look. I dressed for the event. To the point where I walked in the room, I made a beeline for Stacey. She didn't know who I was, but
and do you stand? Sorry to keep on this point, but like, but do you stand out by doing that? Is like, does everyone else kind of turn up pretty casual, whereas you're looking a lot smarter?
So the reason is because a lot of the people who attend these events work for like, I don't know, Sky or BBC, kind of mundane without sounding rude, but very mundane kind of, I don't know, journalists, if you like. They're going there with their tick list of questions that they've been sent that they have to ask. I'm going there as a fan of the sport, asking the NFL guy a real fan or, legacy question that they're going to appreciate. And it works all the time. And Stacey kind of I think she caught whiff of my perfume. My hair was very different. I try and stand out. And she was like, "You look like a player." And I said, "Well, I have actually played before." And that was it. That was it.
Yeah,
she ended up giving me her number.
Away. Yeah.
Got her on the show. Every time I see her out in the States, she's always coming to say hi. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. If you leave a mark, be it first impressions or you ask a really cool question on the show, like I was obviously just at the Super Bowl and at something called Media Row, which is a massive hall. And every platform has their setup and their table. And I was with DAZN this year. I've got people coming up to me, which is insane. And like people that I was doing the legwork to chase and are coming to me to say, hey, because I had them on the show, I've left a good mark. Honestly, you can't make this stuff up. The process is so key.
Yeah, no, I love that. With these guests, are you learning anything from them when you're interviewing them?
So, yes, I learn a lot about what it takes. I'm not necessarily trying to get to where they are in terms of what they do, be a sideline reporter, a player in the NFL. I mean, that's never going to happen. A head coach, wherever it is. But from them, I'm learning what it takes. So if I'm taking one nugget from everyone, I've got a bank of information. So from the sideline reporter, Stacey, it might be the drive and the determination. I think she has to spend 11 or 12 hours on the sideline, something like that. But to even get to that stage, you're having to fly from state to state. So you've got to be out of the house for about 3-4 days straight. So the grit, it might be grit from one, it might be one piece of advice from the other. So James Coe, who was telling me about the 100 no's and the 1 yes, because at that time actually I kind of hit a low where I wasn't getting any guests, no one was responding to me, and I was like, what am I doing wrong, And then he was one of the people that I had thrown 100 shits at the wall and one stuck, and he was one of them. And I actually told him that, and I'm sure I put it out as a clip somewhere in my feed where he was like 100 no's to get the yes, and I actually told him, well, I hadn't had anything come through, and I'm so grateful that you accepted. In terms of what I'm doing now, if I'm able to apply everything that they've given me, it's a case of reinforcing what I already believe in. So some of the things on this list, or what it takes in terms of the process, it acts as like another reminder, because they're actively in the world that I love in terms of the NFL. And whilst it looks easy from behind the screen or behind the computer or however people are watching, it really isn't. So when I hear their real life stories that I love to share with people, because no one knows what it takes. We just see the end product and nobody knows what it takes. That is the kind of stuff that hits home for me. It's like, wow, I mean, this is what they're having to endure for us to see the end product. I can definitely continue on this journey, this process. I feel kind of like boosted by it, if that makes sense. And then it's even tenfold when I meet them in the flesh, and it's like, wow, like who would have thought? I was chasing you for a show, you got back to me, you gave me some words of advice. Now we're both here at the same event, and I feel like I'm on a level playing field. It's wild. Honestly, it's wild.
That phrase "living the dream" gets thrown around way too frequently.
Yeah.
But literally, you fell in love with something, and you decided, I'm gonna throw myself into this, and now you're. I mean, it would be like me being able to interview pro wrestlers every week. Do you know what I mean? It's like something that you love that has taken up so much of your time, and you're clearly obviously really passionate about it.
Yeah.
But then to just go, this is my thing. I think it's really beautiful what you've managed to achieve, and just through following your interest, putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing, is like, just taking that leap and going, do you know what? No one else is like, there's no other guy. No one else is being the guy. I'm going to be the guy then.
Yeah. And that was another thing, actually. There wasn't anyone from the UK doing what I was doing. And I'm not saying if there are people, then you shouldn't do it, because I get it. It's like, if you look at football and soccer, if you like, it's hugely saturated. It's the UK sport, right? But you're right, man. It comes down to the why. And for me, it's the passion. And that will never, ever, ever, ever change. And it's so easy for me to say that, because it's the truth. I'm a fan first. I played the sport, and that also holds me in good stead when I come to meeting these people, because I can then have an actual in-depth conversation. I can do it from a media perspective. I can do it from a fan perspective. I can do it from a player perspective. Yes, I didn't play in the NFL. Clearly, there's a massive difference, but the game is the game. Doesn't matter if I'm talking to a player, a coach, a reporter, a head of officiating, it's exactly the same. So by the time I start throwing out play calls and words and schemes, their head has turned and they're immediately paying attention. So I've just taken it and run with it. I don't take any of it for granted. Very, very, very grateful, but I've put in a lot of work, and I want people to just remember that.
And I think even if you'd never played a day in your life, it's the passion for and the willingness to learn Obviously, you're going to learn a lot more like practically on the field. But even if you hadn't, I still think you'd still be in the same position, because it's not playing that got you here. It's
True.
the work that you put in after your career had ended is what got you here.
That is true. That is true. And you can use the same analogy, because people talk about that in football. They look at managers and go, how can you be a manager? You never played the sport. But it doesn't have to be about that. So you're right. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
To end off then, what advice would you give to the person who's stuck and they've got this idea of this thing, but they think, well, probably not me, or they're getting in their own way, as you were for a while?
I would say, if there's someone you can speak to who you know has you in their best interest, and that might not be the friend you think it is, like, listen to that carefully. The friend that you think has your best interest at heart might not. So if you can find someone who has your best interest at heart, genuinely ask the question and just talk to them about what you're wanting to do, just to gauge some information. But honestly, the number one thing that I always tell people, and it's a very boring and mundane answer, is start. So I get a lot of messages, and what I normally say is, whatever means you have right now, because I feel like right now people are so consumed with, I don't have the right computer, I don't have the right phone, I don't have the latest iPhone to record, I don't have the best ring light, I don't have the best space. It doesn't matter. You can just start. If you have a smartphone, which I'm assuming most people do, even if you don't, borrow one, use someone else's, start. And it might be, the example I always give is people who message me and they want to get into the world of sport. They leave it at that. I then reply with, okay, do you mean journalism? Do you mean taking photos? Do you mean videography? Do you mean content creation? Do you mean interviews? And I always tell, and I did the same thing. Get a piece of paper, write in the middle what it is you're trying to achieve: content creator, artist, musician, in the middle. Do a simple brainstorm, take it back to school, draw all these small squiggly lines off it, and all the different things that you think you can achieve or what it is you want to achieve, write them down. If you're trying to make something you can make money from, look at yourself and ask, can I make money from doing this? If so, what's the next step? If it's something you're just trying to do for fun, same process. Brainstorm all these squiggly lines, just write everything and everything that's involved with that sport or that thing, and literally take it back to basics. And if there's one thing that you really like, you think you can do really well, or you want to do really well, or you want to get involved in, go after that and just start. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're at. You can, this day and age, you can do anything, right? Just start. And as you start, you will find ways, either you want to continue that way or you'll navigate and go elsewhere. But just start. Amen.
100% agree. I love that this has been, like you said at the beginning, full circle. You've gone from being a listener to now being on the show, which I think is, really beautiful. I'm not a believer in manifestation, but it is funny how these goals that we write down so often do actually materialize. And it was not your suggestion to come on the show. Like I met you at an event recently, and I invited you on. So I think there's something to that, the magic of the universe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an honor for me to even be doing this. Like I said, still a massive fan of the show, always will be, and I always wanted to be able to give back. So the fact that I'm on the show now doing that is great. So I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Nice. It's an honor for me. And I'm glad that the show was a small part of your career. Where can people find you online?
Real easy, at George on Sports, one word, on every single platform going. YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all of them. George on Sports, one word.
Do you know someone who would benefit from listening to this episode? If you do, share it with them. This podcast literally wouldn't exist if it weren't for the paid subscribers over at creativerebels.substack.com and for the team at Joy Collective.